Episode 1 of It, Welcome to Derry, begins this prequel series to King's wildly popular book with a whole rabble of people sitting in the theatre watching a film called The Music Man. Sitting in the middle is a little kid sucking loudly on his candy dummy called Matty. He's called over by the usher after sneaking in without paying. With his cover blown, Matty Clements rushes out the screen. Hiding behind a cardboard cutout in the foyer, we get our first glimpse of Ronnie and Hank Grogan. They're hardworking folks and kind too, with Ronnie covering for Matty while he's hiding. Eventually, Matty makes it outside and tries to leave Derry by hitchhiking. On the outskirts of town, he's picked up by a family who seem, at least on the surface, to be regular happy folks. Unfortunately, peeling away those layers of cheerfulness reveals a much uglier core. Despite driving away from Derry, they wind up right back on the road heading into the middle of this cursed town, where the family begin chanting O-U-T. The mum gives birth to a grotesque mutant baby and it begins flying around the car like crazy. Eventually it sets its sights on Matty and his candy dummy flies through the air down into the sewers below. We then skip forward 4 months. The main consensus away from mutant babies and crazy car rides is that Derry is a relatively quiet, quaint little town in Maine, albeit one with a few weird occurrences every now and then. 2 soldiers touch down at the airbase after being in Korea, Paulie and Major Leroy Hanlon. There's a lot of chatter about Russia and the potential implication of nuclear war here, but the consensus is that this base in Derry is colloquially referred to as the tip of the spear against Russia. While being briefed, the guys catch a glimpse of an interesting warehouse that's off limits. Apparently this is restricted for special projects. Now Hanlon was raised on a farm and began with dust farming, where he just naturally took to flying. He's also incredibly brave too, as spelled out through the Major's accolades being read out. We see some of this though that night when he manages to thwart a couple of intruders with Paulie when they show in masks asking for specs to a plane. Away from this plot though, Matty's death still hangs over the town, at least in the darkest spaces. One kid who's still pondering what happened is Teddy Uris. He's a quiet, shy kid and he explains that Matty didn't have a whole lot of friends. In fact, he was paid in candy to attend his birthday, along with his loudmouthed and alien-obsessed friend, Phil, who's too busy thinking about the end of the world and nuclear winters right now to do his homework or even focus. Now Matty wasn't completely alone though, as we soon learn, given he took a liking to a girl at school called Lily. Unfortunately, she's referred to as Loony Lily by the popular kids and she's bullied by the others quite badly. Now when Patty and her cliquey gang place pickle jars inside her locker, it seems like an innocent prank, but there are layers to this joke. Now Lily's father works at a jarring plant and an accident caused him to lose his life. And Lily blames herself for this and won't even visit her father's grave because of her guilt. And there are also rumours about her father's body parts being found in pickle jars across Maine, but it's unclear if these are just wild rumours or actually genuine. However, Lily's nickname with Loony came about because of her stint in Juniper Hills, which is a facility in town. For now though, Lily chose to see Phil and Teddy. The previous night she heard Matty in the pipes, but naturally this is quite the outlandish story and neither believe her. That night though, Teddy has a frightening encounter when the lampshade begins flickering and the fixture turns to human skin. The screams awaken his brother, who doesn't really offer much in the way of assurances, when he chalks it up to a bad dream. It does work to convince Teddy that something isn't quite right here though. With Teddy now convinced, and Phil by extension given how close the pair are, they head off to the library with Lily to try and get some answers. The newspaper clippings for Matty's death send them over to Ronnie, who's shocked when she hears that Lily and the other kids are also experiencing strange visions and ghostly music just like her. Now apparently this audio comes from a musical called The Music Man. This is the same film, if you'll remember, that Matty was watching that night from the start of the episode. The gang sneak in and Ronnie loads up the film on the projector. Inside the movie, Matty shows up cradling a baby and suddenly lets the mutant baby into the theatre. Now Ronnie watches in shock as it massacres everybody except Lily and Ronnie. The pair rush out the theatre away from the baby, but the magnitude of what's happened finally hits Lily, who lets out a blood-curdling scream, which is where episode 1 comes to an end. So it seems no IP is safe from the jaws of corporate IP mining, and the latest to be thrown through the grinder is Stephen King's wildly popular story of It. And the first episode is a bit of a mixed bag in that respect, and there are some good moments but also a ton of bad ones too. And let's talk about the giant mutant elephant in the room, shall we? That baby CGI was pretty awful, although nowhere near as bad as the baby in Twilight, and it immediately undercuts the whole reason why Pennywise is so scary. and the thing is supposed to be operating from the shadows and picking off kids one by one, but driving through a brightly lit town with a family spelling out words just doesn't hit the right beats. Especially when you compare this beat for beat with Georgie's infamous end at the beginning of the first movie, and obviously during the prologue of the book. The time period of 1962 does make sense though, given this is one of the interludes in the book with the feeding frenzy, and seeing some of the acting from the kids, I'm kind of glad they were killed off so quickly. And Lily's backstory has a good amount of meat to it though, so I'm not surprised she wasn't killed off, but the nature of that cinema massacre doesn't feel very Pennywise, does it? If I'm not mistaken, and if I am, please do correct me in the comments, most of this creature's kills come about through luring kids into isolation or using their worst fears against them. And given its fear that makes its victims taste better, there's a difference between a quick massacre and really leaning into psychological chills. And right now, this series isn't really doing the latter. The lampshade segment then is perhaps the strongest indicator for this, but killing all the kids together at the hands of this ridiculous CGI baby loses all effectiveness and scares, and it feels like something ripped right from a bad 2000s movie. It does seem like all of this is going to rest on the military subplot, which seems like it's going to work in a way of tying in the backstory and explaining the machinations of Pennywise, all whilst using it to fight back against the Russians. It's quite clunky the way it's been implemented into this first episode so far, and doesn't fit particularly well into the overarching story, but it's still early days and the jury is still out with that one. Plus I'm a pretty harsh critic as well, so there is that. There's definitely potential with Welcome to Derry though, and it remains to be seen whether this prequel series can knock it out of the park. Personally, I'm hoping it does, but we'll have to wait and see what the rest of the series has in store for us. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.